Good afternoon. My name is Ashley Walker, and I am the Education Chair for NCHIMA for this year. And welcome to our webinar today, Navigating AI in Healthcare, Balancing Innovation with Privacy Risks. We've got a great hour scheduled ahead of us today. Our speaker, I'll introduce her in just a moment, but as you have questions, please feel free to use the questions button at the very top, and we will try to address those as we go. Today's session has been approved for one continuing education unit for use in fulfilling the continuing education requirements of the American Health Information Management Association. And so today's presenter is Mickey Jernigan. Lots of good information here. Mickey Jernigan has over 23 years of privacy and compliance experience in the higher education and healthcare industries, including over 12 years as Chief Privacy Officer. Mickey's expertise includes healthcare and institutional compliance with HIPAA, HITAC, FERPA, GDPR, FTC, GLBA, state privacy laws, data governance, data security, conflict of interest, excluded party screening, contracting, and investigations. Mickey currently serves as the Senior Vice President of Compliance at CompliancePro Solutions. And as the privacy and compliance subject matter expert, Mickey oversees the privacy program and growth and functional development of the company's SaaS-based platform. Mickey is tasked with several strategic initiatives within CPS and its parent company, Genzeon, a trusted global enterprise and leading provider of security, compliance, cloud-managed services, and intelligent automation for the healthcare and retail sectors. Mickey previously served as the Assistant Vice President of an Enterprise Privacy Officer for Augusta University and Augusta University Health Systems. She was responsible for the strategic direction of the privacy programs and had oversight of the conflict of interest disclosure program, the external hotline and internal compliance complaints, and the projects for the Audit, Compliance, Ethics, and Risk Management Office. Mickey's roles included the Chief Privacy Officer at UNC Chapel Hill and the Chief Compliance Officer and Chief Privacy Officer at East Carolina University's Brody School of Medicine. She has served and led on data governance, cybersecurity, compliance, privacy, enterprise risk management committees. She also has experience conducting risk assessments, breach analysis, investigations, process improvement, third-party vendor reviews, as well as creating policies and procedures. She's a frequent speaker and active with several industry organizations. She resides in her family in Greenville, North Carolina. So welcome, Mickey. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. I'm very happy to be here with all of you this afternoon and that wonderful, wonderful welcome. I guess we will jump right into it then. We'll go over our agenda first. As we've already done our introduction, we'll talk about the learning objectives that were planned for today. We'll discuss different definitions of AI and the Trustworthy and Responsible AI Network, or TRAIN. We'll also get into some of the risks and rewards of AI in healthcare, and also the very important role the privacy officer plays in the organization when evaluating new or existing uses of AI. And then, of course, we'll try to wrap up with some strategies and best practices, and then discuss a little bit about the conclusion, the learning objectives that we hope we have met today, and then a few other resources at the end of our end of our presentation today. Our learning objectives today will cover and discuss risks associated with AI in healthcare, how HIPAA regulations and other regulations should be considered when using AI, and of course, wrapping it up with strategies and best practices to mitigate these identified risks. We're going to begin today with a short polling question, and I think there's going to be a variety of answers, but how many of you are terrified of AI? As we watch the numbers come in, I can share that about a year ago, I would have definitely answered A. As a risk-averse privacy officer, I was terrified. Now, as I've learned a lot more about AI, I'm not scared of it, but I am still pretty cautious, and that encourage everyone on this call today works with their organization to create some guardrails around AI. Looks like we're pretty close here to go ahead and close the poll. Oh, except I'm sorry that I lost the results there when that poll closed. Sarah, can you bring that back? Okay. So it looks like most of you, 68%, are somewhere in the middle, which is really a good place to be. Those of you that are still scared, hopefully after our discussion today, you won't be quite as terrified of AI. And then the 13% of you that aren't scared at all, more power to you. Maybe we can all learn something from you someday too. So in defining artificial intelligence, there are a lot of definitions out there. But this definition from the Oxford Languages Dictionary seemed to capture the definition the best without a lot of technical language that privacy officers, HIM professionals, and others would more easily relate to than one with a lot of technical jargon. So it's really just the development of computer systems that can perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, such as visual perception or speech recognition, decision making, even translations between languages, like a lot of people have on their phones, applications that translate between English and Spanish or vice versa. There are 7 general types of artificial intelligence. The first 3 are based on functionality, and the final 4 are based on capabilities. Some types of AI actually fall into both categories. The narrow AI or weak AI is designed to perform a narrow task, as it says in its title. It's like facial recognition software, Google or other internet searches, or driving a car even. Most current AI systems are this type. Again, playing chess on your phone or on your computer with another program is a type of AI. General AI or strong AI is AI that's programmed with broad human-like cognitive capabilities. It can autonomously take on new and unfamiliar tasks. And then superintelligent AI is said to be the future of AI, where computers could eventually surpass human intelligence, including creativity, general knowledge, and problem solving. We've all either seen or heard of the Terminator movies. The type of behaviors exhibited by Skynet would be considered superintelligent AI. Elon Musk has had several cautious and famous quotes about superintelligent AI. One is that it has the possibility of becoming hostile toward humans. Yeah, who knows? I mean, I think just about anything might be a possibility. But another quote from him last month during a live stream on X is that, quote, "My guess is that we'll have AI that is smarter than any one human probably around the end of next year." I guess we'll see if that comes to fruition. The next 4 types are based on functionalities. Reactive machines are systems that don't store memories or past experiences for future actions they may take. They simply analyze and respond to situation. IBM's Deep Blue, which beat Garry Kasparov at chess, is one example. Then we have limited memory. It can take in informed and improved decisions by studying past data. Most present-day AI applications fall into this category. Think about a chatbot or virtual assistants. Then theory of mind is a more advanced type of AI that researchers are still working on. It would entail understanding and remembering emotions, beliefs, needs, making decisions. This requires the machine to understand what humans truly believe. And then the last type of AI on this screen is self-aware. It represents the future of AI, where machines will have their own consciousness and self-awareness. Today, this is still theoretical, and in theory, it would be capable of understanding and having emotions, which could lead to the formation of beliefs and needs. The Trustworthy and Responsible AI Network, or TRAIN, was formed, in March. Technology and healthcare leaders came together to form a consortium to responsibly advance AI in healthcare settings. Their aim is to have a safe and fair AI that's accessible to all healthcare organizations. Anticipated benefits include sharing best practices, creating a secure online portal for registration of AI used for clinical care or operations, tools to help measure outcomes of the AI, and a federal registry for AI outcomes. Hopefully, we will be seeing some results for that over the next year or two. This is a quote from the TRAIN Consortium announcement, and it was made by Microsoft, and is basically saying that responsible implementation of AI is their recommendation as one of the world's largest technology companies. Next slide, please. Okay. This is another quote from that consortium announcement, and this is from a healthcare leader and researcher who also recommends approaching AI in a responsible manner. His take on it is that if we approach AI in a manner like we would a new drug or device and put it through a rigorous trial like we would for a clinical trial, evaluate the results, have peer review, that we will have a better outcome, a more fair outcome, a more balanced outcome. So we're at our second polling question, and is AI currently being used at your institution? Yes, absolutely. We're so excited about this new technology. Or no, definitely not. A little bit, maybe not. Too many unknowns, and I don't know. We still have a few coming in. It looks like the majority so far are answer C a little bit, but not too much. Many unknowns. I think that's where we're going to land with almost 50% are answer C. But a close second is I have no idea, and a very close third, no, definitely not. So there are definitely some uncertainties going on. But it's very likely that AI is deployed in many areas across your organization. This slide represents the slice of AI as this was measured. This was the most recent results we have. That per these statistics, healthcare has the largest percentage of industries in which AI is being utilized or expected to grow. So AI is here to stay. Finance and or many other categories on this slide, plus healthcare, equals even a higher impact than represented, because as we all know, healthcare is so complex, it involves many, if not all, of these different subcategories. So then we ask, is artificial intelligence worth the risk? We didn't have time to view it today, so we added a link to the video of a PBS interview about bias in healthcare devices or protocols on the resources page at the end of this deck that will be shared after the presentation. One of the areas in the interview discusses how AI is problematic when trying to generate information with skin color. Many years ago, experts created tools to take vital sign readings of patients, but did not take into account melanin levels. Studies of current pulse oximeters measuring the patient's O2 levels have demonstrated that darker skin did not reflect accurate blood oxygen levels. The same can be true for infrared thermometers that are being used during the COVID pandemic. And I'm not bringing this to your attention to place blame or point fingers, but just to create awareness and discussion for possible solutions with these types of devices, or even protocols that you will see discussed if you're able to watch the video later. And then, of course, rewards of AI in healthcare. While AI may be scary and only as accurate as the information it's based upon, there are known rewards in the healthcare context. AI is used in many healthcare organizations to enhance patient experience, improve population health, reduce costs, and improve the work life of healthcare providers by sending appropriate reminders to schedule routine care, mammograms, annual physicals, and more, and even follow-up care. When the outreach is meaningful to the patient, it places less burden on providers and has the opportunity to improve the interactions patients have with the healthcare system. Catching a healthcare issue early or even preventing it reduces costs and also improves population health. And there are many tools out there that healthcare organizations employ to do these things. Like I said, from patient reminders to reminders to a healthcare provider about following up with a patient. So there are lots of opportunities here for rewards in healthcare. The privacy officer's role is to be the privacy regulatory and ethical voice of the organization, provide advice about laws and best practices, including during reviews of projects, contracts, and uses of AI. Another important piece is providing that feedback after the review and advise your organization how to move forward while complying with the requirements. Not just saying, too risky, we can't do this, but because if it's really important to your organization, it's how to find a path forward rather than just being a stop. AI is having an outsized impact for privacy officers. As privacy officers, we're accustomed to providing advice on new or updated regulations, but AI seems to be an entirely new realm. Or is it really? After much study over the last year or to 18 months, my opinion is that AI is simply more technology focused than other areas privacy officers usually have a role. Adding AI to the list is simply an expanded role for the access, use, and disclosure and transmission or storage of sensitive data, both PHI and PII. Educating leadership and stakeholders and creating new policies and procedures are functions a privacy officer already performs. When you think of AI in these terms, hopefully it's not quite so overwhelming. The National Institute of Standards and Technology Roadmap, or NIST, as many of you may be aware, has set up a responsible use of AI wheel or document or roadmap. It includes governance, where you should meet the regulatory requirements, ensure output is trustworthy, follow established processes or procedures, include the risk tolerance for the organization, and monitor behavior of AI. It's to map to the intended purpose, include all interdisciplinary efforts, all the different organizational functions that are required to support AI, including reviews, and include the organization's strategic goals, values, risks, or any other requirements. It requires measurement, so you establish metrics. You evaluate the AI for trustworthiness, the effectiveness of the controls you've put in place, and involvement from all levels of the organization and the impact on those users, whether it's frontline users, a developer, AI actors, leadership even. And then you manage. You determine if the goals are reached, optimize utilization for identified benefits, and use risk-benefit models with response and recovery plans. And then finally, with everything else we do in a compliance function, audit. That's a continuous review to confirm your desired results or to help you catch earlier rather than later some areas that aren't conforming to your requirements, so that you can adjust those or decide, well, we can adjust our requirements because we have an outcome we didn't anticipate, but we're okay with it. Establishing privacy guardrails for AI. This is one that can be a little more difficult in the beginning, but once you go down the path, you will be much more likely to be able to use it going forward. When you establish guardrails, consider support for the mission, any learners, med students, nursing students, etc. you have in your organization, research that's conducted, and the HIPAA de-identification safe harbor. Please keep in mind that even with the safe harbor, there's still a risk of re-identification with the addition of big data. At some point, though, Congress and/or the Office for Civil Rights, through rulemaking process, will update the safe harbor to account for these risks. Also, keep in mind that AI is very similar to the beginning of the enforcement of the HIPAA privacy rule. If you couldn't do it with paper records, you can't then do it with electronic records. Remember, we all said that quite a bit 10 years ago. But with AI, it's the same. If an individual or organization is prohibited from accessing, using, or disclosing PHI or PII, then using an AI system or model or software doesn't change that. We have several possible options for guardrails, and they range from not allowing usage at all within the organization. And I can tell you that we have a client who did just that to get their arms around what was occurring and how they wanted to move forward. But they did it in a mindful way because they had so much going on and they were such a big organization. And once they did that, they were able to create a policy and a procedure and be able to move forward. Another option is allowing AI usage only after vetting each use individually. This would be a lot of work and it would move very slowly. But that may be okay for your organization. Their organizations are all different in their risk tolerance level and their bandwidth and their resources. But then the last option that I have listed here is to create parameters for limited use of AI without full review. And that would mean if the AI usage falls within those parameters, then no more approval would be required. However, regardless of which option your organization uses, the best practice is to require a written business use case and attestation by either the user or the leader of the facts of the situation, so that if they change down the road, as they are likely to do, then you have something to go back and review and compare against. So, creating a policy for AI usage. I mentioned that when talking about the last slide. So once leadership at your organization has determined its risk appetite for adopting AI, which may differ among uses, a policy and a protocol or procedure should be created and followed before approving new uses of AI. Things to consider. The applicable regulatory schemes. You have to consider HIPAA, Part 2, other state privacy and breach notification laws if you have patients or research participants from other locations, any human resources requirements. This would be specifically applicable if you have biometric uses and the state has a biometric requirement like Illinois does. FTC, FDA, PCI, any other regulatory schemes that apply to the data in your organization would need to be considered, just like it would be if you were working on any other new policy or procedure that involved data. Also remember to include internal and external uses or disclosures of your organization's data for AI purposes. You may have researchers internally or externally who come to you and say, hey, we want to use this data for a research project. And generally that might be okay, except they're using it in an open source AI. That's not likely going to be okay with your organization to use any PHI or PII that's not fully de-identified. So those are the kinds of things to look for that may be buried deeply in protocols that you might not recognize initially. Another example is sharing data with the foundation for fundraising purposes. They have a lot of tools that aren't always used in healthcare organizations, so that's something to think about too when disclosing data to your foundation for fundraising. What are they doing with the data when they have it for fundraising purposes? They need to ensure that they aren't putting it at risk by any kind of open AI or other sharing that isn't permissible. So creating protocols for privacy reviews before implementation, which would be ideal, that those protocols are in place, the controls are in place, everyone knows what they should or shouldn't be doing. But either way, establishing that to me is very similar to establishing IRB reviews. Establish timeframes for when requests must be submitted and when they will be reviewed. Setting these expectations in advance and then following them. If you say you're going to have something reviewed by a certain time, then you should have it reviewed by then, and if not, be in close contact with the submitter so that they know about the delay. These things will assist your committee or group in managing these requests. I also recommend periodic re-review of approved AI usage. That should be set in advance as well. It may be the same for all uses, or you may risk rank it based on your risk tolerance in your organization, just like you risk rank your annual compliance plan or your annual privacy plan. You risk rank the things that are more important or more likely to have a bad outcome if something goes wrong. Your protocol or your policy should include penalties for noncompliance. And it should also state any exceptions or exclusions. If you do list exceptions or exclusions, they should be very narrow. And there should be a process or a position, your CIO, your CEO, whatever the appropriate role is in your organization, to determine that exception. So once your committee's reviewed it and denied it, or it doesn't fit within the parameters of any availability to be approved, then that should be the only avenue to make the decision on whether it should be acceptable at your organization. Education and awareness of this new protocol is vital to the protocol's success. And periodic re-reviews generally, annually or more frequently, should be included in your protocol as any regulatory requirements change. Anything comes down from Joint Commission or the Office of Civil Rights or ONC, any of those groups, then you should be able to quickly adjust your requirements. So creating that procedure before implementation is a way to review AI uses already in place. One of the things you may want to do, and that I highly recommend, is gathering a list of all AI uses in your organization. Risk rank them, like I mentioned before, and begin reviews. This may take several months or longer to compile, sort, and obtain facts, including business uses. Beware though, there may be some privacy, security, or other privacy violations to address. And those are things you want to take into consideration as you're doing your reviews, not after the fact. Your reviews should include questions like, does this application comply with the new protocol? If it does, great. Document the review and move forward. Remember to note a re-review time frame, even for those that meet the protocol. What if it doesn't meet your protocol? What then? Are there changes that can be made to meet the requirements? How vital is it to the mission of your organization? Is the risk too high, or is there a tolerance level that it can be reduced to? Set a time frame to either sunset the application or discontinue it immediately if you can't find a way to make it fit into your risk tolerance level. We got through the material a lot more quickly than we expected today, but at our conclusion today, we hope we were able to cover the risks associated with AI in healthcare, how HIPAA and other regulations should be considered using AI, and strategies and best practices you can use in your organization to mitigate these risks. We hope you enjoyed the presentation and that it met your desired outcome. One thing we can open it up to questions, but while we're doing that, I wanted to share with you that your upcoming event, your Tri-State Annual Meeting in Myrtle Beach late this summer, September, we will be attending that event, and I will be speaking on a different privacy topic, and we would love to meet you in person, see you at our presentation, answer any questions you have about this or any other privacy topics we can help with. But while we have time left, we can open it up for questions. Do we have any questions in our queue?
One thing that I kind of think about with AI, and I know that so much of what we do in healthcare is so much based on our ability to kind of think through, but what impact do you think that the spread or the adoption of AI will have on jobs? And what have you seen the workforce do to kind of prepare for some of those changes?
I've seen AI actually support and help clinicians and document reviewers, coders be better at their jobs, not replace them, but support them and assist them. My parent company actually has a product that they created, and it's been live about 6 months, where they are doing that on the payer side. They can take just for example, a 400-page clinic documentation about one clinical visit, and I'm guessing that's inpatient being so long, but they would take it from the payer's view and say, hey, did we pay this accurately? And they could take that 400 pages and get it down to maybe 20 pages that the nurse reviewer needed to review. And it saves them tremendous amount of time. It is not eliminating jobs that I've seen in the healthcare setting, but it is supporting those clinicians and reviewers in ways to help them be more efficient and more effective. Yes, there's a comment in the question thread, and I agree with this. Starting to see more AI language mentioned in payer contracts. And I agree with that. And I think as a privacy, I don't dispute it. I said I would agree that I would anticipate seeing that. But as a privacy officer, I would say ensure that your business associate agreement from a privacy and security standpoint trumps anything in a written contract, so that you can have those protections in your business associate agreement that don't allow for inappropriate uses in AI that would inappropriately share or disclose your PHI or your business information, whichever it may be, to the public. So I guess we talked about our polling question. We can't do another poll at this point, but what I would be interested to know is all of you that were in the middle of the road or were the terrified answer on AI, do you feel a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more less, I mean, not more, less overwhelmed than you were before we talked about this? I think I'm saying yes. Yes, very.
No, that's okay. I was going to say the question is, this participant finds this area of compliance very interesting. Any advice for a recent graduate trying to get into the privacy/AI field? She currently holds an RHIA credential.
Absolutely. One of the things I would definitely advise you to do is get on a few privacy listservs. The Healthcare Compliance Association and HIPAA have listservs that your colleagues will be talking about privacy topics, asking each other questions or for advice. And so those are free ways to get into those types of threads, but also reach out and network with people in your area, in your state, in your chapter, wherever it may be. And if you can, do the same when you're able to attend national conferences. But networking is one of the best ways to learn more about the privacy field, but also a good way to make those connections when you just want to reach out and say, hey, I have this issue. What do you think? Or have you ever experienced this? And more likely than not, your other colleagues have experienced it. And so there should be several creative ways to address an issue.
Very good. And just to kind of piggyback off that, I think that often, and especially bigger organizations, it seems like more types of generative AI are being used than what maybe people realize, maybe like on an individual level. So if you have some individuals within your organization that are, maybe more on the high tech side, they'd be a good person to reach out to. Another question that came in is, I think that artificial intelligence could be beneficial for patient and physician relations. Could you see this being used in EHR systems, or have you seen AI integrated in EHR systems?
I think it is in some systems already because I think the healthcare industry, for one, has had some form of AI for a long time. So some of the things that might, say, sit on top of an EHR, like a monitoring system, has AI built into it. And it's not learning, but it's following the protocols you have set for it for, say, inappropriate access. I think it definitely could be more beneficial to help sort through all of the tremendous amount of data that's in an EHR. But it's one of those that we have to be, I would say, be cautious about, but trust and verify. So I think it will happen. It's just how quickly, I'm not sure, because healthcare, especially from a privacy officer, a compliance officer, HIM professionals, we tend to be risk averse. So as long as we have the ability to slow things down and do it right, I think it will be beneficial at some point in the EHR. Yes.
And kind of a comment that came in from someone, it says, from my experience with the EMR monitoring technology so far, they feel like AI does a great job aggregating the data. However, you still have to dig in to get additional details. So I don't know if you have anything you wanted to add to that, Mickey.
Actually, I couldn't agree more. My company, actually, CompliancePro Solutions, we integrate with some of those monitoring systems, and our system helps dig into that for you, helps create a way for you to review a possible incident, create an investigation, etc. But yes, the EMR monitoring systems, go about an inch deep and a mile wide. So using our system, and this is not a plug for our system, but we have the ability to help with that, to help make that data much more meaningful and have, for lack of a better word, less digging by the privacy analyst, privacy officer, HIM professionals, whoever is doing the review.
Very good. Another question that came in is, um, what would you say, or what have you seen be the biggest issue in introducing AI into an organization? And I guess
Mm.
that's kind of broad, but I mean, I guess you could look at it from the perspective of using a system, for monitoring or just using it for, data.
I think some of the bigger issues, and like you said, that's a very broad question. I don't think I could point to one specific issue. I would say several. Some of them are risk averse. You know, an organization's risk tolerance is really low, so they don't want to risk anything at all. And then the other can be said, it can be true for the other end of that spectrum where the risk tolerance just doesn't exist, right? They'll do anything, they'll try anything, and then they have to back up and fix things and have a lot of risk out there for fines and penalties and regulatory issues. So the biggest issue I see is probably trying to move too quickly. I think a more measured approach and a good business use case can really help a case move along for adoption of an AI use. So, not having your ducks in a row, trying to move too quickly, or accepting too much risk can be, barriers for adopting AI in your system.
Another question came in. You recently presented the subject at HCCA. What are some of those questions and concerns from individuals there?
Some of the issues that came up there, we had a really good audience participation rate, and we asked the audience to share some of the things that went well and some of the things that didn't go well at their organization with adoption of AI. And I think the biggest thread that came up was introducing AI without any review or approval. And not knowing where it was, what it was doing, and then having to get your arms around it later, where it was the biggest fear of the privacy and compliance professionals in the audience. They really, and some of them had come across it and they shared the stories of how they got their arms around it. They had executive leadership sponsoring them, and really the tone from the top to fix things and to get things in a more ordered fashion. But some of them were like, we're still trying to get our arms around, these three uses or whatever it may have been.
Gotcha. Very good. Um, Another question came in, or more of a comment. It says, I've seen a lot of AI companion products utilized for several years now by payers, especially with prediction modeling. If diagnoses are not documented and submitted accurately, AI can have a negative impact if the data is not accurate.
Yes, I couldn't agree with that more. That, the documentation is what the AI usage is based on. So just like if a human was reviewing it, if diagnosis isn't documented and submitted accurately, it wouldn't pass the coding review or the billing review, whichever it was. So just like humans, the documentation still has to be there. We should not be able to let AI guess or be predictive, because as we all know, that is not what CMS requires or allows or insurance companies allow. Documentation has to be there or it didn't happen.
Right. I think that's one thing. If health information professionals don't stand for anything else, is that documentation. I did not see any other questions come in, so we'll give them just a minute. Oh, no, I spoke too soon. Um, this question is AI more likely to be useful for initial coding, coding validation, or for CDI, or all of the above? It's like a test question.
Don't we always say all of the above? Usually that's the answer right on a test. I think, but I truly think the answer could be all three. But I think it needs to be slowly adopted, and I would not adopt all three at once. I'd pick one and do that. I'd say that initial coding may be the first step, and then a human validates it. That would be my advice on where to start on this quest.
Right.
We did have a suggestion too that we could play the PBS video if the attendees, we have time to play it now. We didn't think we would have time during the regular session, but we do
Right.
have time to play it now if we want to. Sarah, do you have that queued up if you want to play that?
Sure. And while Sarah's getting that ready, one thing that I will just add, just because the slide was up there, and so for our North Carolina members, there are several really good topics planned for the tri-state meeting, not just specifically on AI, but different ways that AI is being used. So keep that in the back of your mind for September.
And I see another question came in about a person is currently working on a research paper and they've seen inserts of bias issues that I mentioned. It appears that the commonality of AI in some cases is that AI results out what it is taught or fed. Do you think that applies to all AI types? I don't think it applies to all AI types because some of it are learning models and they don't work that way. But if you have bad information or inaccurate information going into any AI system, it will skew the results and it can have an adverse effect on the results that come out of AI.
Technological innovations are reshaping the U.S. healthcare system, transforming medical science and treatment. But a new report from a coalition of healthcare providers finds that a number of software programs used in hospitals across the country are powered by algorithms with racial biases, which can cause physicians to misdiagnose medical conditions or delay critical treatment. Joining us now is Dr. Jane Morgan, a cardiologist and president-elect of the Southeastern Life Sciences Association. Her work has focused extensively on health equity issues. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And Dr. Morgan, among the biased information these hospitals are using is a kidney function calculation, which presumes that Black patients have more muscle mass, which can cause delays in care. There's a lung health formula, which uses 19th century research that suggests that Black patients have a lower lung capacity. And then there's a scoring index for determining whether a person can have a vaginal birth after a C-section that gives Black and Hispanic patients a lower success rate. So how do biased data points like these affect patients' treatment?
I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. What you're talking about with the kidney function is something called eGFR, estimated glomerular filtration rate. It's what we use to do an assessment of your kidney function. And that's incredibly important because that number can determine whether or not you're eligible for a transplant, when you should be referred for specialty care, when you may be referred for dialysis, which medications you should be on, and when you should start them. So can make your kidney function appear better than it really is, and therefore delay needed and specialty care that you may need to have. We see that as well with lung capacity when we look at spirometry. And that in particular is troublesome because a lot of those calculations are built into the software, and physicians are even unaware that that race calculation is being used in the software when we look at lung capacity. And that is incredibly important as we are in the middle of this COVID surge, as we continue to fight variants, and people certainly can have pulmonary issues. We want to make certain that everybody gets the absolute best care.
Help us understand where this information comes from. As I understand it, it comes from clinical research, but clinical trials have historically contributed to this problem because they don't tend to have enough people of color involved in them.
Certainly, there is some historical context to that, and we know that things that were done in the name of research, and I'm saying research in quotation marks, from 50, 100, 150 years ago, often began with false premises, and then that was carried on. So, for instance, if we look at the lung capacity, one of the justifications that was used is that body proportions are different in the Black race and the white race. And therefore, they put this race factor in that decreases your lung capacity automatically for a specific race. And while we recognize that individual proportions may be different, things also can be related to occupational and social determinants of health, and all proportions are not certainly race-based. And so if those calculations are going to be done, they need to be done on an individual basis and not using race as a proxy in these formulations and in this software.
Dr. Morgan, the bias can extend beyond treatment to medical devices too, is that right?
So pulse oximeters are put on your finger to give hospitals and physicians and other healthcare workers an indication of what the percent of oxygen is in your body. What is your oxygen level? And that oftentimes can be used to triage you with regard to whether or not you need to be seen immediately, whether you need to be transferred to the ICU, whether you should be given supplemental oxygen or even intubated. What we know is that the greater the amount of melanin that is in your skin, meaning the color of your skin, it can artificially impair the reading of the pulse oximeter. And so you can appear, if you have darker skin or more melanin, to have a higher oxygen level than you actually do. And therefore, you are triaged to lower levels of care when, in fact, your medical condition may be more critical than that pulse oximeter indicates. The reason we have that problem is that pulse oximeters were created in the early 70s. And in those clinical trials, they were not inclusive of people of color. We see that as well with the infrared thermometers that we see. Certainly during COVID, people were using them for screening. You place them in front of someone's forehead to get a measure of what is their temperature. And again, we can see that different amounts of melanin in the skin can certainly impair what that infrared thermometer actually reads. And so we've got to begin to make certain that we not only use these clinical tools as physicians, but demand and request that these tools be validated on all peoples of color, because therefore when physicians are using them, they can inadvertently make decisions and also make errors based on readings from software and clinical trials that were not inclusive.
Dr. Jane Morgan, thanks so much for your time and for your insights.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So I think we have 2 additional questions. Ashley, did you want to?
Yeah. The one that I see, does AI technology currently use ICD-10 CM encoders such as 3M, or will they have to develop their own coding software?
That I'm not sure. I would imagine they would have to buy a license like anyone else would for that, or create their own. I don't know the technology end of that answer. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Let's see. That is the only question that I'm seeing. I don't know if I have a delay on my end, so if you see another one.
I think there was one about any current privacy or AI internships that may be coming up for someone who is gaining experience in the RHIA credentials. Oh, no, they already have their RHIA credential. Okay. So they're actively searching for internships. Ashley, are you aware of any through Pitt or?
I mean, not specific. I'm not seeing that question, so I'm sorry. I don't know.
I'll read it out. It's, shoot. Well, I say that and then are you familiar with any current or upcoming internships within the privacy/AI field? I'd love to gain some experience. Not currently working, but actively searching with an RHIA credential.
Gotcha. Okay. I mean, I think your best bet is kind of what you were saying earlier, Mickey, is just to network and to reach out, get your foot in the door. Because I don't know of anything off the top of my head, but if that participant wants to reach out to me, you can find my email address on Pitt's website, and I'll be happy to talk with you more about some options. Another comment came in just to follow up on the question about 3M. 3M already has an autonomous coding product that is AI based, and I do know that that should be a topic at the Tri-State meeting. So
Wonderful. There we go. Another plug for everyone to attend the Tri-State meeting in September.
yes. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. Thank you, Mickey, for the wonderful information. Thank you for the great questions that came in. I hope everyone has a great day. And Sarah is putting some more information in the questions box there for participants. So I hope everyone has a great day.
Right. Thank you for joining us today.